Welcome to Musicians versus the World, the podcast where we explore aspects of music and musician life that may not have been covered in music school. I am your host, Christine Smith. In this episode of Musicians versus the World, we're talking with Adam, Lukas, and James Everingham, the incredibly creative composers behind the music to BBC's Frozen Planet 2. We're going to do a deep dive into the inspiration and composition techniques they used when creating their beautiful score. And we'll also chat about their experience collaborating with Norwegian singer, songwriter, and record producer Aurora in this project. James Everingham and Adam Lukas are innovative composers with Bleeding Fingers Music, a composers collaborative co-founded by Hans Zimmer and Russell Emanuel, known for its collaborative environment that yields high-end and innovative musical palettes. Equipped with custom technology and unique instruments and synthesizers, James offers a passionate approach to scoring, and his original music, including his debut album Leviathan, has accumulated over 10 million streams across major streaming platforms. As an orchestrator, recording engineer, and producer, Adam has collaborated on projects with some of the world's most revered musicians, actors, and directors, such as Joshua Bell, Misha Maisky, and John Malkovich. And they were kind enough to join us today to talk about this innovative musical palette. So James and Adam, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Musicians versus the World.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, Christine, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm excited to talk with both of you. Frozen Planet 2 is absolutely amazing. I've been watching with my family, and just everything, the cinematography, the editing, and then the music all come together. It's an incredible, incredible program. Congratulations on such a wonderful project.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really did. So what was your favorite scene to work on? It's such a wide range of animals and landscapes and things. What was the most fun?
It's hard to pick one. But I would say that podcast escalated quickly. My favorite scene is a scene where two birds are puking at each other. And it was incredibly difficult to score. The birds are snow white, and they get into a fight. It's they fall off a cliff. It's almost Mission Impossible. It's an action-packed scene, and what these snow white birds do to fight each other is vomiting some orange liquid. And I tried to score it like a really cool action movie using drum set and distorted solo violin. That was a hilarious scene to watch and work on. Probably one of my favorite ones. On the music I wrote for that, the cue is called Projectile Vomit on the album. You can listen it and guess the moment when the puking happens. I think the music makes a quite distinct sound there, so maybe you can figure that out. That was a really cool one for me.
How about you, James? What was your favorite?
A bit tamer for me. It was the baby harp seals. It was actually one of the first ones that we worked on, one of the first sequences that we got. And all of us were just struck by how, firstly, how amazing the footage was, but also the storytelling and the narration, and, the impact of this baby seal, from growing up through the years and, learning how to swim, and then eventually, spoiler alert, being left alone on the ice by its mother to fend for itself in a very hostile ocean environment. Getting to write for that sequence and carry the arc of that animal and the emotional impact of the mother leaving it after bringing it up was a great experience. And I think for all of us, it put a lump in our throat even on the sort of 100th watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful touching scene. And that's why I wanted to ask you that right off the bat. I'm sorry. I know I put you on the spot. We went from like 0 to 100, Adam, on that question. But
No, I'm all for that. Really.
yeah, but what I absolutely love, and the thing that gets me about this program, is the storytelling. The storytelling is just fantastic, and you get this emotional connection with those animals and with this baby seal. And I think Aurora was in that scene. Did you have her singing over that? I thought I maybe recognized her voice in that cue.
Yeah. So there was some actually. Some of the Aurora in that scene was recorded for a different scene, and then I sort of brought it in and found harmonies that worked and used that to sort of inspire new ideas. And then later she went back and recorded over it again. So that one was a really great experience working with her, because, you know, we had all these different kinds of approaches of how we would approach sort of her input.
Yeah. Well, like Aurora is an incredible singer, an amazing musician, and she's very innovative herself. So how did you get in touch with her? Was that like your idea? Like, hey, let's call up Aurora, or was she already brought on by somebody else?
That was our producer, the score producer is Russell Emanuel, and our boss here at Bleeding Fingers Music. And he brought her in.
Oh, okay.
And he couldn't have made a better call, I think. Yeah, it was a perfect match. First, musically, we thought we were quite aligned, and then when we actually met her as a person, we just had, I think, the most fun I've had in years recording with musicians. Yeah, it was a really fun experience. Maybe we can like tell some anecdotes later, or
oh no, you can tell them right now. Go ahead and tell them right now if you want to. Yeah, I would love to hear them.
You know, I like to tell one. She actually came late to the session.
Well, yeah, she's probably really busy. So.
She's probably busy, but she's also she's busy being very kind, because what she did is so she was late, and at remote control we have like some beds of flowers there. So because she was late, she ripped out some flowers and brought them in and said, "Sorry, I was late." You know, the flower picking made her even more late, which to me is the fun part. But I think from the very first moment, from this moment on, we knew we were gonna have a lot of fun. And what we did with her is, first we would, before she would even sing on the scene, we would sit with her and watch the scene together. And her reactions were just so genuine. She would cry watching the scenes, and then some scenes, you know, she would crank up and in laughter. And I think that really set the tone when she was going in and singing the takes. She would bring all that emotion to the recording booth, and that gave it the extra goosebump factor.
Yeah.
What was good about that session as well is that usually, you know, you got the producers, the composers in the control room, and you're separated by multiple layers of glass, and then maybe in the distance you could just about see a vocalist sort of behind a music stand and a array of microphones. But we actually went in the live room with her, and we had some synths in there, and so yeah, as Adam said, after we watched the scene together, we'd go through together, and then I guess, you know, of course she's doing the singing, but we were all sort of working together to sort of, I suppose, communicate what kind of performance we wanted to capture. And, you know, she kept going and going and going until she really felt that she'd captured exactly the emotion that she wanted to get from the scene. Yeah. You know, she's watching it as she's singing. And so to sort of be in there in the room with her as she was singing, it just felt like we were, I guess, privileged to experience some kind of magical situation.
It was truly collaborative.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it feels like you hire a person and then they do their job, and that's fine as well. But with her, we really felt we were, even though she was singing obviously, but we did it all together, and it was a really nice feeling. Yeah.
We did do some shouting together as well. We all gathered. There was one section where we all gathered behind the microphone and sort of did this chanting to add some sort of rhythm to a scene. That was great.
Which scene was that? I want to go back and watch that one.
That was the end of the Arctic Ocean episode, where it ends with a huge crescendo.
Actually, it's Frozen South, isn't it?
It has been renamed to Frozen South, yeah. And then it's just, I think 11 or 12 bars of in a constant build-up, and we just screamed at the top of our lungs to end this episode properly.
Oh, that's awesome. That's incredible. So you had like the scenes pretty much scored and everything, and she would come in. Was there ever a moment where she did something that made you want to change the score underneath just a little bit, or tweak something here and there, like after she was done recording?
100%. Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff that she did, kind of as I alluded to earlier, where she would record for something else, and that would work great. But then we'd also be listening to that sort of as a standalone vocal stem and thinking, whoa, like you could do all sorts of other stuff with that and manipulate that in a different way. And, there were all these moments where we'd be scoring a scene and we'd get to a point in the sequence and what does it need now? And then you pull in some Aurora from something else and then it completely unlocks where it needs to go musically.
Oh, isn't that incredible? It's such a wonderful thing about like collaboration, and especially someone like Aurora that is very imaginative and innovative, and she just feels things so deeply and it comes through her music, and that just must have been a blast to work with.
Well, we were able to work with her in person, but also remotely as well. So when we were sending stuff over to her, and we knew that whenever we would get it back, it would be magic.
And she would be on tour. We never knew where she was. She was like touring around, and a lot of stuff was recorded in a bus with her producer, who recorded her. Yeah. So this. Frozen Planet, I think the whole endeavor, I think we did music for a span of almost 2 years, I would say, from writing the first piece of music, which, there was already an involvement with Aurora, and then we went on to scoring. We were scoring early picture, and then until the very last minute, I think it was a span of over 2 years. So Aurora would be all over the place, sometimes on a different continent, and adventure. Yeah. Pure adventure.
Yeah. I had no idea she was involved for such a long time. Yeah, that's pretty rare to have a singer involved for so many months, just to have her. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not constantly. There would be months of breaks, and then we would send a batch to her, but we would never know where we actually sent this stuff
So
to.
then when she would record in the bus, was that difficult to, like, I just think of like the ambient sound and, the reverberation. Was that difficult to kind of process and get that into the score with all of the different sounds of the recordings?
Well, sometimes it's good to get the really close-up stuff. That Aurora, I think, lent the whole thing the intimacy and the human voice. And it if anything, it made it really special to be really dry vocals, and then obviously we would apply our effects, and then
I got to give a shout out as well to Magnus Skilstad.
Yeah.
I think I probably pronounced it wrong. Sorry, Magnus, but
you tried. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Her producer and part of her band at the time, and he was with her helping with the recordings, and he did just a great job capturing her and producing her, in person, and he knows her voice so well, and he's just a great guy as well. So great for him to be part of the recording team as well.
Now let's talk about your part of it. So let's talk about some of those amazing themes that you came up for this. Like, you have a different theme in one episode, and then there will be like 5 different themes with 5 different capturing different emotions. Is that something you worked together on, or did you say, okay, you take this scene, you take this theme? And how did the collaboration work with all of this?
The themes, I would say, were the most collaborative part of the show, I think. Especially in the beginning, and with Hans as well, there would be this triangle of sending stuff around and getting opinions and really finding a sound, shaping a sound.
Mm-hmm.
And we often say the themes are, first you establish the themes, and the score, you take elements from the theme. It's sort of the theme should be giving and should provide you with material that you can reuse in the score, that helps with
cohesion.
And it took some time to figure out the character, the Frozen Planet main theme, and then we wanted to write a piece of music that resembles climate change, and then we had what we called the Wonder theme. Those were the earliest pieces of music that we wrote, and let me just say, it was not version ones. It's a process. It's a process. It's a lot of ping pong with lots of people involved. We would have internal discussions before we send stuff to the BBC, and they would have input. They would get back to us with more ideas. But to me, that's the most fun part of a project, because you can really, as a painter puts the colors, those were the things that we were trying to figure out. What's our sound palette?
And that process as well of working with everyone at the BBC and with Hans and with Russell at Bleeding Fingers is all about trying to distill those early musical ideas, like right down to what is the core of Frozen Planet musically. So then we can take from that and use it in the rest of the score with confidence. Yeah.
Right. Well, like you said, you have, like, for example, this climate change theme. So what were some of the discussions around that? Like, were you wanting to make it ominous? Were you wanting to give it a sense of, oh, we can change this? What were some of the conversations around that theme specifically? Like, that's a very heavy concept to represent musically.
I think that the special aspect of this piece of music, it's not really a theme. So whereas the Wonder theme and the main theme, it's a melody you can sort of hum along, and it took some time to figure out what would be a good contrast to the beauty, right? So the climate change theme is actually just it's a chord progression that obviously when you repeat it gets familiar, and it can become a theme, but it's not like, it doesn't have a distinct melody. It's something that gradually changes between these chords and builds and builds and builds until at the very end of it all sort of collapses. And that's obviously, we were just trying to musically explain what's going on in the climate crisis. It's moving slowly, but very intensely. And I think on the album it's called Crisis. We didn't call it like the...
That's one of the heavier climate change themes as well, because obviously the main one that we used in moments like, for example, the Greenland ice sheet collapse.
Yeah.
But there's always this undertone in the show, and there were moments where it called for something heavy like that one you described, but also moments where we felt it was important to not be overbearing and to not sort of come down like really heavily with this sort of sense of drama and like anger or whatever. And moments where we wanted to just not tell the viewer to feel sad or whatever, but just to sort of lead them in that direction and maybe pull at the heartstrings a little bit. And also what David Attenborough does so well is to set up these habitats and these animals and make you fall in love with them, so that when at the end, we're talking about climate change and the impacts that that's having on those creatures, that it kind of comes home, even more.
So you introduced this chord progression somewhat early on so people could subconsciously recognize it other times without really kind of realizing that they're recognizing it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's very, very clever.
Yeah, that's correct.
Did you get to go to any of the places? They're pretty far out. I don't know.
No.
Unfortunately.
That'd have been amazing if you had been able to go.
When we really kicked off the project, we were mid-COVID still.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were sort of trapped here in LA. Yeah.
But in a way, that turns out to be a blessing in disguise, because, usually with something like a scripted drama, for example, you get a script and maybe there's a set that you can visit, or you can go chat to the actors and you can sort of be involved from an early stage. Mm-hmm. And that's great for getting started with ideas and building a palette before, it's ready. But with something like Frozen Planet, we get the footage and we watch it here in the studio, and that's the first time seeing it and seeing, what they captured. I mean, they went out there with their cameras, and I'm sure they have a vague idea of what they're going to get. But then it's like, let's hit record and just witness nature. There's no script. That's not planned. It's just how it happened. And so we're trying to channel that as well when we're watching it. That first time that we're watching it, what's our gut reaction to the footage and to the events that are unfolding, like in real life? It's not made up.
That's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Now, did you have a lot of freedom with your scoring, or did you have someone telling you specifically, I want this, this is? Yeah,
I would say we had lots of freedom. Once everyone agreed on the sound palette, that's the sound, and then within that frame you move. And
yeah,
I think the BBC, they're, I think a huge privilege from the composer's perspective working on these shows is that sometimes there's just a minute of footage, and you would only sometimes get interrupted, if I dare say, by Sir David's voice. But sometimes there would be 30 seconds for you to just write. And we do a lot of stuff here at Bleeding Fingers, and it's to different degrees. There are challenges doing reality TV, there's challenges doing scripted, and but one of the privileges I would say of working on the natural history stuff is you get these moments, and you get to really write and do your thing, and they were so appreciative of what we've done. They were really
as we are of what they pulled off as well.
Exactly.
Right. So when you get that like 30 seconds of footage and it's just beautiful, and you're asked to go write something beautiful to match it, what do? Do you just get excited and think of a million different ideas, or like improvise?
Well, first you freeze, and then you look at the blank sheet, and then there's a lot of how am I going to pull this off? Until you calm down and just rely on your craft and try stuff.
Yeah.
And we're never alone. I think, James, our rooms here at Bleeding Fingers are next to each other. And we must have, although they're next to each other, we must have traveled kilometers. I would always get his feedback, and I would give him feedback, and then there's Hans' feedback, and then there's Russell, the score producer, who has the bird's eye view and listens to every cue. So there's no...
But to me, that's my favorite part of this whole job, if you could even call it that, is that moment where you get an area where you got to write some music, and then you find that theme that just fits the mood perfectly, or that perhaps it's a new arrangement of something that has already been written, or just you unlock the door into just lifting the scene up with music. Sometimes it doesn't need music, but when it does, and you find what works, it's just such a great moment. Whenever I write something that I like, I always try and remember how I came up with it, and I can never remember.
Yeah.
I can never remember if I hummed it or if I played it or if whatever. It just sort of materializes somehow out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's an absolute black box, because I mean that's actually really interesting to think about, because you're always looking for the idea, yet when you gotta have the idea, you just have to sort of wait it out and to have this epiphany.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. But it can be good thing about doing film scoring is there's always the deadline, and the deadline is always lurking. You know, you look at the end of the day, you sort of have to get it done, and that makes you move things forward and just go with your idea. Even if you say it might not be, let's see if I can pull it off, and then you just work on it and change as you go, and on a good day, you go home with a good feeling.
And you enjoy what you've done, so that deadline can help you from just doing constant rewrites and never being finished, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. Now,
having these deadlines cured my writer's block. There's just no time to not have ideas.
Yeah. Now, did you work on the series as one big project? I mean, because I believe there's 6 parts, right? Did you work on one episode at a time, or was it kind of an overarching to do all the scoring for the whole thing at one time?
It started with one episode,
Okay.
and then the deeper in we got, the more chaotic and overlapped it became. But yeah, it was all, it all happened at once, pretty much, I would say.
Underneath all of that, you have those climate change sort of chord progressions and kind of underlying throughout the entire series that come.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So
exactly, we tried to treat it like, a 6-hour movie, essentially.
Yeah. At this point into the project, again, from the composer's perspective, you have written so much music, and you really, I got so used to this Frozen Planet sound. I when it ended, I think we could have gone on for another 6 hours. You really get into it, and that helps in the crunch phase. To have, the better you prepare before the project, the more of a good time you'll have at the end of it.
Yeah. So now that's a good question. How do you prepare for a project like this before you even get into it?
Before we wrote a note of music, there were conversations. We all sat around a table and discussed, what is the sound of Frozen Planet? What are we going to do, to reflect ice and to reflect climate change and to tell the stories of the animals,
right?
All these different angles. And so sometimes it's working on the themes before we get the show. Sometimes it's just writing music for the sake of writing music to sort of try and capture some idea. Maybe it's just a 1-minute track. Maybe it's a 10-minute sketchbook, but just trying to get some ideas down, before we get it. And then when we get it, we can lay it in and see what works where, and, how does it feel? And did we hit the mark, or maybe we completely missed it altogether?
Right.
For Frozen Planet, we actually collaborated with Spitfire Audio. And created a library, a music library just for the use of Frozen Planet.
Really?
And it's called Frozen. It's not called Frozen Strings. It's called Fractured Strings. Apologies. And the idea was, we were looking at how ice would behave, and ice fractures. The snowflakes have these little branches, and so we were sort of getting inspired by that. What could that mean, but in music? And so that's a composer toolkit basically we designed for Frozen Planet, called the Fractured Strings. It's sort of hard to describe with words. If you're familiar with the Frozen Planet 2 soundtrack, then you hear that a lot. It's literally the first musical thing you hear when you hit play on the soundtrack is this fractured strings thing. And that was also so helpful, because we would always, if you're in a pinch, you can always rely on that. You can always go home to the bass and start with what can I do with this tool? And that was a really fantastic thing to have while scoring this thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you created this tool for use in this project, and then Spitfire collaborated with you to offer it to other.
Released it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you go into this project planning on doing that?
Bleeding Fingers has a long-standing relationship with Spitfire Audio, and we worked together on Blue Planet and a number of other shows. So it was already, we already had that relationship established, and early on we were thinking about how, we always like to have a toolkit of sounds prepared before we jump into the project. And for this, we wanted to get London's best string players together and get in a room and just think about what does ice sound like in music, how it blooms and sort of spreads underneath a frozen lake, how a snowflake kind of spreads out with this amazing symmetry, how we could reflect that in a string arrangement. And I think we got pretty close. I mean, it's if you,
I mean, that was just our idea. Different people might do it in different ways, but we were very, very happy how it turned out. And we had that tool from the very beginning. This was like a first idea, and then it took some time to record and obviously edit everything. But when the first episode came in, we had that tool and we were like ready to work with it.
Right, like
so
saves.
That
Yeah, it saves you time
helpful.
because you already have that, and you can just be creative and use it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you said you edited it. Does it have some processing with it, or is it just the style of playing that those string players that kind of encaptured that ice sound? What did you do with it?
It's really, we wanted to capture the performance of the players, so it's not sort of manipulated and processed as a sort of sound design element. It's just as they played it. Yeah. But we did work with it, and sort of bend it further. Something that we did like to do was to down tune it, so that it becomes much darker, and I don't know, it kind of just makes it feel a bit grittier and a bit, I don't know, a bit wider. I don't know. Yeah. And then obviously, we did a lot of experimentation with granular synthesis and reverbs and delays, and disguising it a little bit more, and hiding it in places, but always having that be one of our core sounds that we can come back to. Spitfire team are amazing, and we work together closely with Paul Thompson and the team there to sort of come up with these articulations, and obviously they were instrumental in putting it all together, and building out the sort of early versions that we could use in scoring, and then of course putting together the commercial release as well.
And so when you hear this, and when you hear these sounds that you have and these articulations that you've helped create in other people's compositions, do you just kind of get chills a little bit?
We had this for a whole year, and we thought we exhausted the options, having played around with all the patches. And then when Spitfire released it to the public and people were uploading their compositions, I was like, wow, like I haven't thought of using it that way. So it's, it's, even though it was made for Frozen Planet, it's good to see how people put it in different contexts, and obviously not only use it for Frozen themed stuff. I've heard it in an array of things now, and then it's really interesting where people take it.
Yeah, everybody's creativity and just kind of working together, that collective creativity is just so rewarding to like watch and pay attention to, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, oh my goodness, we have taken up so much of your time. I have absolutely loved talking with both of you. And to finish up, I guess, Adam, we'll start with you. Do you have any last minute advice for composers or musicians or aspiring composers or aspiring musicians that want to be doing what you're doing and creating this beautiful music?
I'm going to give one very boring advice. but it has helped me a lot lately. And I stopped seeing creativity as such black box thing that you can't control. I think being a film composer is you have to be, your mind has to be fit. And so, have a good breakfast, have a healthy breakfast, and eat nuts. And, it helps with, I think as creatives, that's the big thing. You need to understand our mind. It needs to be trained. It needs to be healthy. It needs to be ready to perform, because I can't afford having a bad day. Or, I would say, training means listening to scores. Training means listening to Mahler, Mozart, Beethoven. You need to train it like a muscle, and it needs to be healthy. It needs to be able to perform. That's my boring advice.
You are the first person to recommend eating nuts. So well done. It's good. Yeah. It's great.
Eat nuts, Lukas, 2023.
No, honestly, fantastic. It's excellent. Fantastic advice. Not boring whatsoever. So thank you, Adam. James, how about you? What advice do you have?
Again, slightly boring, but something that I think has helped me is just to write. I don't know. I think there's always excuses to be made about why, I don't have a film to write for, or, I don't have this sample library, or, so-and-so has this that I don't have, and therefore I don't have what I need to write. And they're all just bogus excuses, really. I mean, if you've got an iPhone or, any kind of microphone or a MacBook with GarageBand installed, you can make music. I mean, it's never been easier. And, the best way to get better at something is just to keep doing it again and again and again.
And eat nuts.
And by eating nuts, exactly.
Yeah, just keep going, keep doing it. Well, Adam Lukas, James Everingham,
keep doing it.
You are both just so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me. I've had just a fantastic time talking with you and learning from you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having us. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.